Good afternoon. I am Margiana Antunes, the translation specialist for Partners Resource Network. We are a nonprofit agency that operates the Texas statewide network of parent training and information centers, or PTIs. The PTI projects known as PATH, PAN, and TEAM are funded by the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs, OSEP. These provide to families, children, professionals, and self-advocates training, education, information, referral support, and individual technical assistance in obtaining appropriate services. Welcome to our Texas Autism Supplement Facebook series. Joining me today is Christina Henning, Director of Statewide Services for PRN. She will be helping me with the slides transition and providing any technical assistance if needed. This is a pre-recorded session, but we are answering questions live during this presentation. So if you have any questions, do not hesitate to post them on the comment boxes, and we will be happy to help. This series have in mind parents who have children with autism or any other pervasive developmental disorders, family members, friends, neighbors, anybody that loves someone with autism and that someone is receiving services and will receive services in the public school. The objectives for our series that is going to be all this week are to provide an overview of the 2008 Autism National Rates and Needs. And according to Autism Speaks, the rates of prevalence for autism in 2000 until 2018 was 1 out of 59 children are determined to have autism or diagnosed with autism. To understand what is included in the Texas Autism Supplement, our next objective will be to understand how to have access to these strategies included in the Autism Supplement during our meeting. And finally, to provide an overview of the Texas Autism Supplement strategies. Okay, so all this week we've been talking about the Texas Autism Supplement, and there are several ideas if you skip or miss previous videos. For you to find where these rules are posted, you'll have to go to the Commission Rules Concerning Special Education Services, Section 89.1055. The Texas Autism Supplement, it's in those rules, and we need to keep in mind that the Texas Autism Supplement is a form because it is an insert about 2-3 pages long that you will typically find in the last part of our paperwork, and it's also a process. And it is a process because it requires the collection of data, it requires to verify the student needs and the progress towards IEP goals and the general function, behaviors and communications and adaptive skills of a student. It encompasses 11 strategies, and it becomes to be 11 strategies after 2007. Before that, they were only 7 strategies. And these strategies today, as it was from the 1980s, were created just to make sure that schools did not skip on these main areas. The critical skills are recognized for all individuals who are diagnosed with autism. So communication, behavior, social skills, among others, should be addressed. If not in the IEP, but throughout the IEP goals, the Autism Supplement form is there, included in our paperwork, just to make sure that we don't leave any of those main critical areas not covered. These strategies, the 11 strategies used for interventions, must be peer review and research based. And finally, the fact that you participate in your R meeting and you review these 11 strategies doesn't mean that these are going to be implemented the art committee must validate and must explain in writing the reasons why they believe it's necessary to use any or many or several of these strategies at a time for a specific student. Next. All right, so today we're talking about strategies 4 and strategy 7. Strategy 4 is about the positive behavior supports. And as we all know, we know very well, behavior is communication, not only for kids with autism, children with autism, individuals with autism, but for anybody, for you and me, everybody. And when progress is not shown in the areas of behavior or communication, then we need to make sure that when we go to our art meeting, this is an area that must be discussed, and this particular strategy will come in handy when you're trying to address behavior or unwanted behaviors or maladaptive behaviors. There are several ways to address the positive behaviors or behavior as an area of need for children with autism and pervasive developmental disorders. And one of these areas would be either you get a screening, and the screening could be done by the teachers or maybe a special education teacher, or maybe by the school psychologist, or more complete, you can request for a functional behavior assessment. The functional behavior assessment, compared to the screening, is that the functional behavior assessment will determine the behaviors or the maladaptive behaviors, the behaviors that we want to eventually eliminate, the reason for those behaviors, when those behaviors occur, what's happening before those behaviors occur, meaning we are trying to look at the triggers for those particular behaviors, and then the consequences for those behaviors, and what to do about it, meaning what strategies are we going to put in place to either avoid those behaviors or to start eliminating the behaviors, as we are replacing these maladaptive behaviors with new behaviors that are more appropriate and obviously age appropriate. Now, this evaluation will, the results of this evaluation will help the art committee to come up with a plan. This plan or this program is called the BIP program, Behavior Intervention Program. And this behavior program will specify the goals that are going to be addressed throughout the school year in regards to behavior. And it could be that one of those behaviors could be aggressive behaviors or self-injurious behaviors, or maybe that the student is off task, or that the student blurts out, or that the student flee. Any behavior you can think of that is not allowing the student to benefit from the education can be addressed in this BIP. This BIP, as well as the functional behavior assessment, requires qualified personnel to do the assessments, the evaluations. It doesn't establish how long this evaluation can be done, but obviously when you go in your art meeting, you're able to ask the questions of who is going to conduct these evaluations, and how long this evaluation will take, when are you gonna obtain the report and or the findings, and how many times maybe your child will be observed or visited by one or two more individuals. And most likely for these particular evaluations, sometimes the evaluators will reach out to parents and ask some questions, or they will reach out to teachers, or both. The strategies or techniques that are going to be used in the BIP has to be research-based or scientifically validated interventions, specifically for autism. And one thing that is very, very important, as well as not only for this strategy, but for every strategy as well as for the IEP in general is the progress monitoring. Once a BIP has taken place and you see that new strategies have been implemented, but you still receive notifications, or you still see that your child continues to behave or exhibit the same behaviors, and maybe the behaviors have been escalating, then that's the time that you know that, well, we need to go back to the table and then go back to square one and then find out all the alternatives and other ways to address the behavior. Maybe the behavior goals, they need to be readdressed, or maybe the strategies that are being used are not the most appropriate for the particular student. But these positive behavior supports not only will take care of addressing maladaptive behaviors and providing replacement behaviors, but also to understand why the student is doing what it's doing. Because like I said, behavior is communication, and most students with autism, they do struggle with communication skills, and behavior is a way sometimes for them to express what they want, what they don't want, how the way they feel, and that's why this is a critical area for everybody who has a child with autism to be addressed during the annual ARC. Next. And strategy 4, again, positive behavior supports. I would like to show you two sites that I like very, very much, especially the PBIS world. But let's go first to TEA page, and it's to show you how this TEA addresses the positive behavior interventions and supports. And one of the things that I would like to make note is that positive behaviors are related to the restorative practices. Many of us have children with autism, or many parents that children with autism, they are at some point concerned because the student can be either suspended, all because of their behavior. So obviously, in some cases, we need to think about outside the box and apply the restorative justice or restorative practices which are in place since 2015. And these practices are tightly linked with the positive behaviors, supports, and strategies that we are now going to go back and show you some of those. Christina, if we can show, there we go, the positive intervention. And then if you click on that link that from TEA, you can browse the site and then learn more about the TEA interventions and how they work. There's trainings over there, second site, PBIS. There are trainings and different types of training depending on the level of the intervention, whether they're basic interventions or more complex interventions. There we go. And then obviously on the resource page for parents, they have parent resources there, and behavior resources. This is a site that for anyone, doesn't matter whether your child just started school or whether you are in high school already. I think it's always a benefit to review this from time to time and to keep your knowledge updated about what strategies are there and what strategies are being proven for students with autism. And then the second site that I would like to show you, we have 4, but I just want to show you the first 2, is the PBIS World. I like this one very, very much. And when you go there, you see a list of behaviors, and there are many behaviors. Obviously, these are most of the most common behaviors. We're going to click on the one that says tantrums and out of control, because I am quite sure that most of us know that pretty well. And then it describes how this behavior would look like. And it says, fail to respond to any redirection, calming, de-escalation. So yeah, so you can go and read all how this behavior is described, and then if any of these descriptions looks like your child or the students that you have in mind, then you click on yes. And then once you click on yes, it will take you to the tier 1 interventions for that particular behavior. And then, you know, for the first interventions, there are many interventions we can take, that we can try. And we click on avoid power struggles. That reminds me a lot of my son, because at some point when he was in elementary, the teachers will say, we cannot try to make him change his mind, because did you engage with him in a discussion whether who has reason or not, and who is the one who, you know, just to justify his actions, he will go for hours. He was just trying to avoid whatever activity it was, and it was convenient for him that the teachers will engage with him in a power struggle. So obviously, for students like that, like mine, these are the things that they suggest for you to do, when you should do it, and how you should do it. So then again, if you're a parent, if you're having behaviors that you don't know what to do, or maybe you like for your art community to try new strategies, new interventions, this is a great site for you to kind of play and see what is offered, what is there. And obviously they have 3 tiers, and you can click on tier 3, tier 2 and tier 3. If tier 1 doesn't work and tier 2 doesn't work, you can go to tier 3. And then, you know, they mentioned the behavior intervention plan and the functional behavior assessment, because then again, when we're talking about behaviors that are disruptive, and some of our kids, they are very calm, you barely notice that they're in the classroom because they're very quiet, they keep to themselves, they don't have, you know, usually they are very well behaved. But then you have also the other ones that they have disruptive behaviors, or even sometimes, you know, depending on what's happening, what's going on, some aggressive behaviors at some point, because maybe they're sensory overloaded or for any other reasons. But then depending on the intensity of the behavior, depending on the type of behavior, the needs, there are several types of interventions that you can learn about, that you can, if not use at schools, maybe you can use at home as well. Christina, we can go back to me. All right, and then the other 2, you can check on your own. There's a list of, again, more strategies about positive behavior supports in Special Education Leadership Academy and the Art Body. All right, so strategy number 7 is the staff-to-student ratio. This is a big one, and I heard over the years many parents that complain, or that they wish that their child will have a person with them because of the behaviors, or because of the needs of the particular child, that self-help skills, or maybe the adaptive skills and the functioning skills are not there yet. So these kids requires more support, and some parents, they wish a school will approve, or the art committee will approve, that one staff in particular will be working one-on-one with their kid. That is doable, again, depending on the academic functional skills, adaptive skills of the student, and also the stages of learning. Sometimes when we have a student that requires to learn basic skills, but they are just at the very beginning of learning the skills, maybe at that time they will need one-on-one, and maybe later on, when that skills can be shown consistently in the classroom, and maybe the surrounding of the schools and different settings within the school, then maybe the student it's ready to move on to maybe a small groups and then later on to a bigger group. But it always will depend on the student's particular individualized individual needs. This staff-to-student ratio is looking at the different activities that the student had to go throughout the day. So maybe your student needs a person to be with them, a staff that is with them when they go to lunch or when they go to recess or when they are in pep rallies, because they might be able to see, but then they will wander around the place, or they might just, flee the place, or they might not be able to actively participate, so they need someone with them. But the ultimate goal of the staff-to-student ratio is to move the student forward towards more independence. So we start from dependency or full dependency, having a one-on-one, because the child needs someone with them all the time or most of the time, and then eventually and gradually we'll try to move that students to be more independent. Federal guidelines do not establish or do not set ratios as far as the students with autism must have one-on-one person all the time, or small groups all the time, because then again that determination is done in the art committee and is based again on the needs of the particular student. Maybe, for example, a student will need someone to have one-on-one for math instruction, but maybe for, or maybe music. Me in particular, I struggled for years to try to get someone to be with my son during PE, because PE is a big group. We're talking about 100 kids or more. It's loud. It's very loud. It's lights everywhere. There are many instruments, balls bouncing around. It was way too much. So obviously, the behaviors you get in particular settings within the school, or maybe in some point throughout the day, must be addressed differently depending on what's going on, depending what the student needs. And again, what I was just explaining, the student will depend, in the case of one-on-one, the student will depend on a particular staff. And hopefully the idea when we establish services and when we say this student requires a person to be with him, with her all the time, the idea for the art committee should be to establish strategies and to establish interventions that eventually will drive the student from being fully dependent to be more independent, or to be fully independent. In some examples, you see to increase communications, behavioral or accommodations across settings, for transitions. I recall that my son have a person going with him every time that he moved from this class to the next class when he was in elementary, because he would probably wander around the school and never, people will wonder several times. He'd get lost in the school. The teachers wouldn't know where he was. But that's when you say, okay, for transitions, we need this student having a person right next to him or with him, just to make sure that for that particular time, in the case of transitions going from one classroom to another classroom, that student is going to be accompanied by someone, a staff, that will make sure the student gets to where it needs to be. At this point, my son doesn't need that, but it's important because the teaching must happen. The student needs to learn the skills, and these skills are able to be break down for several years if necessary, in a way that the students gain their own independence and their adaptive skills and communication skills get to the point that they're able to walk from one classroom to the next without the need of someone being with them all the time. Christina, the next. And that's all for today. Our Facebook Live series, the Texas Autism Supplement, will finish tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll be discussing strategies 8 and 9. Strategy A is communication interventions. And strategy 9 is social skills supports and strategies. If you would like to check our previous series about the Texas Autism Supplement, click on the link that you see below, and it will take you to our videos. Next. I'm also going to invite you to check our statewide webinars, the upcoming ones or the previous ones. Topics are very interesting for everybody. It doesn't matter whether your child has autism or not, any disability, because it is about special education. And you can click it on that one. You can either register for our upcoming webinars or have access to the information, the presentations, and the recordings of previous webinars for this year and last year. Also, if you join us on Facebook, you will be able to catch up with all the Facebook Live webinars, the Facebook Live series that we're posting all this year, and all the upcoming events and all the additional information and resources that we post daily. Thank you very much. Again, this is Margiana Antunes, translation specialist for PRN. On the screen, you'll see my email address and also phone number. You can contact us. If you have questions today, right now, you can post them on the comment box, and we will be checking on those and reaching out to you and answering. If you would like to have, you have more specific questions and you would like to be called by one of our regional coordinators, do not hesitate to send us an email or to call us, and then we will communicate with you with the RC that is closest to you. So thank you very much.